A utopian society might seem far from reality, but it is not as far-fetched as many people might think. If only people were not so self-centered. Regularly, people build a bubble around themselves and construct their mindsets to be closed to any outside ideas, which affects a significant number of people from being able to step forward into new innovations. And in fact, everyone seems to be caught in a self-segregating and split-apart era where there seems to be no hope to be open-minded, even though everyone thinks that society is better off than it was a couple of decades ago. It is complete nonsense because everything was done publicly. Now, on the other hand, now everything is done underground. So the majority of people are able to say that they do not take part in such action. Lastly, considering how several people can actually bridge the differences between each other, they should eliminate self-segregation and also be comprehensive in order to find a middle ground where they can meet in peace. Indeed, self-segregation may be the most significant factor in why people might not get along with each other, since it is done subconsciously. Everyone may argue that they do not take part in it. As a result, Sean Blanda, the author of The Other Side Is Not Dumb, speaks on how many people say they are accepting to everything. Yet subconsciously, when an outsider comes along with and brings a new idea, they make fun of them for being out of touch or dumb, which is how many people self-segregate themselves from people that are different. Thus, Cabrera Moro, author of the article Minority Student Club Segregation or Integration, would also agree with Blanda because in article, she speaks on how many times students prefer to be around their like-minded friends instead of being around a group of people with a different mindset. Because being able to accept outsiders without mocking them is a significant step going forward. Only if people began to be open-minded, then the hostile environment will slowly fade away. It might not be a utopia, but segregation would diminish by a vast quantity if done consecutively. Being able to compromise with one another may seem undoubtedly complicated at first glance, it is indeed the most significant. But it is indeed the most straightforward step. Even Michelle Alexander, the author of The New Jim Crow, recognizes that many people tend to avoid talking about class because they are afraid that their class defines them, and many people might not accept them due to their class status. As it has been seen, Blanda's point of view points towards her being on board with Alexander because in her article, people tend to push away from not being. As it has been seen, Blanda point of view points towards her being on board with Alexander because in her article, people tend to push away others for not being like them. Nonetheless, broken down into small fragments, the solution is right in front of them. It is not. It is just simply to talk. Hence, keeping everything shut away in the back of the mind is a significant factor on why they are not able to come to a compromise. If no one is if no one is open-minded towards talking, then there will always be a bias towards anything because he or she are not able to understand the other side with full acceptance. A bias-free environment is needed for them to be able to understand each other. On the other hand, not being able to have a bias-free environment might also set society back. Along the same lines, finding a satisfying place to meet with an opposing side may be very uncomfortable to search for, but it is worth it. In Danya Boyd's article, Why America is Self-Segregating, she states that society needs infrastructures of diversity to come together just as much as we need bridges and roads. Diversity is a big key trying to get to the middle. It only brings different cultures together, but with new culture comes new ways of thinking. Accepting all kinds of people is the answer to everyone being able to get along. If people think that bridges and roads are important to get from one place to another, then it is important for people to bridge their differences so their ideas can take them forward to the other side. In the same way, Morrow also agrees that diversity is needed among students to be successful later on. Since everyone in the real world will encounter different kinds of situations, schools need to prepare them for the diverse world and society ahead of them. Because if they are not prepared for the real world situations, then when it comes to solving a global issue, only a short amount of thought will be put into it rather than many thoughts which can open up new and better solutions. As a result, preparing everyone to be able to treat diversity as a normal thing is a significant change that can only further benefit everyone. Since preparing the future generation will only avoid future panics when encountering a diverse world problem, people should think of diversity the same way as bridges and roads to integrate diversity infrastructures as a preparation of building those bridges and roads, which will later be what holds together the different sides where everyone can meet in the middle. If no bridges were created, then everyone would be stuck with his or her own ideas from their groups, bridging them, bridging them along, but bridging them allows new ideas to come into the horizon. More studies need to be conducted, but it is safe to declare that if people began getting rid of hostile environments, then everyone would feel welcome to bring his or her idea into perspective. This way, self-segregation would not exist, since everyone would not be able to come together and still feel safe and comfortable, as if they were not as if they were in their own comfort zone. Later on, one of the solutions to be able to get rid of the hostile environments would be able to talk it out and letting the other person talk out their side as well. Being able to compromise with one another is about being able to open up and not debate, but just take in new ideas and understand their side. Furthermore, diversity infrastructures is the key to being able to meet in the middle with any argument. If if this was embedded into everyone's train of thought, then already everyone would be accepting from the beginning to outside cultures, which opens up everyone's minds to truly be accepting, which later only leads to everyone talking together and bringing them to a happier state of being, and everyone can come to an agreement on to what suits all of them. Now, if nothing is done, everything can only go sideways, and the utopia that everyone might be after will most likely turn into a dystopia.